How's it, guys? This is Chad from Marshall Music, and we have Rae-Sjan from the X-Ray Room. Today, we're going to be talking about the difference between condenser microphones and dynamic microphones. It's often something that can be quite confusing because in many cases you get condenser microphones that look like dynamics and vice versa. But we're going to talk about what the key differences of their build and their application are. So the simpler one is generally looking at a dynamic microphone, often seen as a handheld microphone. The mechanism by which it works is that sound hits a diaphragm, which is attached to a copper coil in an electromagnetic field that moves back and forth, that induces current. There's your signal. Now, a condenser microphone, which actually predates the dynamic microphone, is a little bit more complicated. You basically have two charged electronic plates, one that is very lightweight, acting as the diaphragm. Sound interacts with that, and by the point of them moving further and closer together, that induces current and therefore signal. Now, when it comes to the application, let's talk about your application, for example, of condenser microphones. What would you say is the key difference of what you would focus on for them?
So condenser microphone, let's say it condenses the voice, literally to take the word itself and try to make it sweet or make it more practical to how condenser mics work. So a condenser mic is something that's a lot more sensitive to sound. It's something that, for instance, a condenser mic standing here could probably catch a bird from outside, right? And also just the way that it's built, it's a lot more sensitive, and I generally use it in the studio to capture vocals because it captures a lot more of the nuances in the vocal studio, especially in a quiet room.
Very detailed.
Exactly. Now when it comes down to, in comparison to a dynamic microphone, very dynamic, of course. You can use it anywhere. It's flexible. It's one of those things that can work when you have a drummer to your right, you've got a speaker to your left, and a couple of monitors and vocals all around you. It'll focus mainly on the sound that you're bringing into it immediately.
So very proximity focused, very directional.
Exactly. And also a lot more rugged than a condenser mic. So you'd never find someone dropping a condenser mic on stage. But a dynamic mic, which is the mic that you normally hold, you know what I'm saying, facing you, is the type of mic that easily you'd find dropping on stage because it can hold the weight, it can hold the damage, or basically the impact of all of that. And of course, just based on how it's built, it's able to ignore everything else, partly to be able to focus on you as the main sound.
Well, that's the thing, I suppose, with a condenser microphone, in order for it to pick up more detail, it needs to have a lot more lightweight parts to move a lot more freely with the air, but again, more susceptible to damage.
And exactly, and that's why I think you find condenser mics are generally kept in a studio where there's a microphone stand, a pop filter, a shock mount, and it's just to be able to accommodate the fact that it's got so much sensitivity and it's going to catch as much information as possible. It's going to get all the whispers, all the clicks, all the silences, to be able to give you that perfect representation when you need all of that info to work with in a studio setting to mix and match.
Very controlled environment. Now, you do see condensers on stage from time to time, but in very limited situations, as opposed to a dynamic microphone, which can fall both into the live scenario as well as the studio scenario.
Definitely, and I think that also comes down to a bit of choice and preference for style and taste. But when it comes down to just the practicality, it is one of those things that you probably wouldn't be advised to use a condenser mic on stage because you'll catch sound from everything else, and feedback is something that we're always facing in a stage or in a live setting. So generally in a studio setting, condenser mics work best, and if you're looking for stuff to work on stage performances or live shows,
dynamic is the standard.
Is the standard, yeah.
And the thing is, to be very aware of that as well, because in a studio environment, to have a condenser, generally price for price, a condenser will give you a better fidelity than what a dynamic will. A dynamic can get you higher fidelity, but it costs a lot more generally. Of course. It is important to understand those differences when you're purchasing.
Definitely. I think even just on condenser mics, in terms of the way they're built to try to catch as much detail, as much information as possible. So some of the really low entry-level types of microphones, so to speak, still work really well to give someone who's starting out, or even some really good professionals, great sound when it comes down to recording vocals, getting certain room noises, getting certain instruments out of the mix, and
Okay, so we have quite a selection of microphones here at Marshall Music, generally about 80 to 90 different models at a time. You're welcome to come through, ask questions, check them out. Check you soon.